still sort of making up my mind about that song, but I like it. And so I'm announcing right now, having failed to consult with him in advance, which I think pretty well defines our relationship, that Dylan Reyes and I will, once again, either in late August or early September, do a show we did last year, which is songs that could have been the song of the summer, and that probably would have been a better song of the summer than whatever winds up being song of the summer. No, he signed off on it just now. It's not like I have to do a lot of arm twisting about that particular thing, but anyway. Welcome to Ask or Tell Me Anything. This is the thing where you call up and you tell me what the topics are going to be. The number is 888-720-9677. It can be differently understood as 888-720-WNPR. I love how I have to dart my head over to the sign. And like I've said this number like 85 million times. Just to make sure I'm saying it right, though. 888-720-WNPR. Let's give you some examples of this. But really, you can call up about anything you want. You could call up about World Cup soccer. You could call up about the Odyssey. You could call up about the primaries coming up on August 11th here in Connecticut and elsewhere. You could call up about Trump's election interference speech. Or you could call up about a topic detached from the news and ideally from reality as well. There aren't really no guardrails, which is probably a gigantic mistake. All right, let's go to Sandy in Hamden. Hi, Sandy. You have the floor.
Thank you. Hi, Colin.
Hi.
I'm a big fan. So here's my observation/complaint. This morning, I'm listening to Morning Edition, and they interviewed Chris Murphy about his thoughts on the war and the funding request, et cetera, et cetera. And the interviewer ended it with, we have an invitation out to the Republican side for a rebuttal. They never come to talk to NPR. Do I have to hate watch Fox News to hear their side of the story? I was telling my husband I wanted to see the president's speech last week because I want to hear what he had to say, but I couldn't. I hate watched it. I couldn't stand it after 10 minutes, and I gave up. So where is our William F. Buckley, Gore Vidal, a cogent discussion of the issues that's entertaining to watch? It's non-existent.
Yeah, I'm with you on about 89% of what you just said. And yeah, I mean, I think one reason that, yes, because Michelle Martin said exactly what you said. She said, I do want to mention that NPR has reached out to Senate Republicans for their perspectives on the war in Iran, and those invitations remain open. Now, they don't want to go. First, don't want to go on this for two reasons. One of them is they just don't want to be associated with this any more than they already are. It is a disaster. It started in January. Trump has announced that it's over. I mean, upwards of 30 or 40 times now, Trump has said, it's over, we've degraded their capacity, the strait is open for good, and it just, every time he does it, he says it like he hasn't said it a lot of times before. It's causing prices to hike not only in the energy sector, but everywhere else as well. It's a nightmare. So if you're, if you're a Senate Republican, pick a Senate Republican, where's the upside of going on NPR, where you will be asked follow-up questions too? But even just going on and having to either defend it or risk the wrath of Donald Trump, I mean, it's not a win. So that's sort of why that happens. And of course, over on Fox, I mean, not only they're probably not going to ask follow-up questions. It's a safer place to go. You're talking to people who already agree with you. But I 100%, it's like you're reading my mind. The death of the William F. Buckley style of civilized debate and discourse in which the humanity of both sides is recognized and acknowledged, and in which the free exchange of ideas happens without an understanding that the other side is full of monsters. I don't know if we're ever going to get that back. I feel like we don't do it enough here at CT Public and maybe not enough here on the Colin McEnroe show, although I have a really cool idea, which I'm going to be pressing in the meeting after this show today for something for us to do. But I think we need to do more of it too. We need to find ways to have conversations with Republicans because I think at this point also, we're getting to the point where for Republicans to pull the ripcord, I mean, the incentives are getting bigger and bigger. And if they get crushed in the midterms, I think they'll have a willingness to risk the downside of the wrath of Donald Trump and just come out and say, look, there's some of this stuff that I just can't live with. But yeah, so I feel your pain. Anything else, Sandy?
Thank you.
That's all you
thank
want.
you. I
All right,
appreciate
that'll
you.
be $62 from you feeling your pain. And I think you could just file a claim with Anthem, see if they honor it. Typically, they don't. All right, our number, 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Here comes Mike from Woodbury. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Colin. So about that Thursday speech,
Yep.
These addresses from the Oval Office are usually about, major, events, national disasters, war. Of course, there is a war, but he barely mentioned it other to say that we're winning it, which of course is not true. It was just basically his old hobby horse of the 2020 election. And he said, go to whitehouse.gov and look at these documents. Well, when you do that, they don't show what he's talking about. They don't show this, this massive deep state, taking over the election in 2020 is what he was talking about.
Some of them illustrate the opposite. Some of them actually show evidence of Russia meddling on his behalf.
Exactly. And not only that, but at the time, John Ratcliffe, who's now the CIA director, was a DNI. And he, if this was really going on, he should have done something about it.
Well, also, that guy Sullivan, who now is his point man, Trump's point man on this, says that they don't have an instance. They don't have an instance of proof. Even the guy that he is kind of detailed to do this is not really backing it up. I think it happened today that somebody asked a great question at a press conference or something. They asked Trump if he would be doing something about China, like would he be retaliating against China if, in fact, they were meddling in the election. Is he going to do something about that? And he said, well, I think I don't do a Trump impersonation, but he said, that was a while ago. I don't know. I mean, he's willing to tariff Canada for, it's unclear now what thing he's going to tariff them
for the wildfires.
Well, initially it's for the wildfires, which we probably had a bigger role in causing. Also, it's not like they haven't suffered. They're losing their homes up there. So he's willing to punish them for wildfires, or I think there's a new rationale for why he's going to punish them. Oh, it's because they were more retaliatory about our first round of tariffs, so they need to be punished because they stuck up for themselves. But he's willing to do that. But China, who he just accused of a grievous act of election interference, no, not really interested in retaliating against them. So that's how seriously he takes that.
And the speech was, ABC and NBC didn't run it, and CBS did, of course, because the Ellisons are his pal. Mm. But even Fox really did not enthusiastically come to his defense. I mean, Laura Ingraham didn't mention it, and then Sean Hannity barely mentioned it.
No. Fox and Friends did nothing. Fox and Friends,
they didn't even say anything on their 3-hour show.
Some of that may be that the multi-million, hundreds of $1 million of judgment against them may be a little bit fresh in their minds anyway. So I mean,
yes.
So there might be sort of either a general unspoken reality in the Fox building. Yeah, maybe not talk about illegitimate elections so much because it hasn't worked out. Or it could be they just think it's crap and it's not a winner. It's not going to work. But meanwhile, of course, right. The DOJ agents are fanning out across Arizona, right, even as we speak, as election monitors. So don't think it's not going to happen. I mean, he'll try to do it.
And he'll probably send ICE to districts where there's heavy, Latino populations, and who knows what he's going to do. It's going to be bad. I think this could really be a constitutional crisis.
You better not try it in Connecticut, or he's going to face the wrath of Ned Lamont.
I know, and then Lamont is going to take him to, and he shut down all these agencies that are supposed to secure the elections, like the cybersecurity infrastructure and the Election Assistance Commission and the Foreign Influence Task Force has been disbanded.
See, what you're doing now, Mike, is what I do, which is to try to make sense out of all this, or to apply the rules of logic to this, and
which doesn't apply.
It is like applying the rules of logic to Inagata Davida or something. It wasn't really it wasn't built for that. It was built for some other purpose. Mike, thank you so much for calling today. As usual, lucid, getting us into some interesting area here. The number to call, 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. And remember, everything's fair game I will live to regret that someday. But here's Tom from Wolcott. I don't think he will make me regret it, but who knows?
Hi, Colin. I'm concerned. I would like to hear more Democrats speak in terms of a reconstruction period post-MAGA. We have to reconstruct the State Department, the Justice Department, America's image in the world. The list is endless.
Yeah. Did you happen to hear our show yesterday?
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Okay, so at the beginning of it, the show was produced by up-and-coming public radio producer Amanda Adams, and it was about undoing how hard or easy it is to undo things that have been done wrong. And it began with a fairly lengthy conversation between me and Bill Curry about exactly what you're talking about now. How hard or easy will it be? And one of the things that Bill said is that there are some things we shouldn't try to restore because they didn't work right in the first place, and it's one of the reasons that Trump was able to run against them. So making that discernment is also very important. And there are other things like just stuff like institutional knowledge and longitudinal studies where we just stopped a study, a 10-year study in the middle. I mean, you can't restart it. We've got all kinds of people who are fleeing federal government either for the private sector or for research jobs in other countries. Norway's, got a bunch of our scientists now. I mean, a lot of it is not going to get fixed, or it won't get fixed in our lifetimes. But yeah, I think it's a very important topic.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Pull up that podcast, though. You can get it anywhere. And all our shows are also available later on, either at ctpublic.org on the website. You can play it right from there, or go to any podcast place and you can get it there. And you can hear me and Bill, and one of us will be making sense. I won't say which one. The number, 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. While I'm waiting for some calls to bounce up, which they will, but since we're talking a little bit of politics right now. By the way, if anybody wants to talk about the Odyssey, I am just so game. I will not see it until Thursday. We're actually getting kind of a late start because we have a relationship with Emily Wilson, who wrote the translation, that although it isn't really the basis for the script of the movie, was a big influence on Christopher Nolan and on the actors who are playing the roles. And she's just sort of become an unofficial member of the team or something there. So, and we already know Emily. She's been on the show twice. So we wanted to wait until we could have her, and that will be not this week, but next week. But I've been just very amused by watching all of the activity by right-wing trolls on social media who decided to make this a cause celeb. And one of the things they said was that it was going to be a big bomb. And of course, it made $264 billion globally or something. It had a stated budget of $250 billion, and it made on the first weekend $264 billion. That doesn't happen that often, where you make back your budget and then a little bit more on your first weekend, particularly when it's that big. I just also want to quickly say that I do feel that here in Connecticut, the primary that's unfolding on August 11th in the 1st District is significant not only unto itself, and this is John Larson, the incumbent, against Luke Bronin, Ruth Fortune, and Jillian Gilchrist. But I think it's significant in terms of the future of Connecticut politics, and will be regarded as something of a bellwether to the nation. It'll be the latest kind of piece of evidence or part of a symptom pattern, depending on what happens. But I think it will determine, if Luke were to prevail, I'm thinking that it will cause essentially every incumbent congressman or congressperson, congresswoman in Connecticut to face a significant challenge, primary challenge in 2028. I actually also think that a possible conclusion may be also that failing to have a strong and clear policy on Israel and Gaza is unwise as you head into Democratic primaries. I'm going to be watching this with great interest. I know John Larson very well, and I'm very fond of him. I know Luke very well. I consider him to be a friend. It's made me a little bit reluctant to cover the whole thing because I feel like I have too many personal connections. But I think it's really, I'm going to write a column about it this week, somehow dancing around all my various personal conflicts of interest. But I think it's a really important primary, and how it comes out will say a lot about the state of things. It will particularly, obviously, say a lot about the level of resentment that may exist against the Democratic establishment, and may make a statement about how people feel about the question of age. We already know something about that. I would say for John, the Mitch McConnell situation was not exactly a political gift this close to the primary date. But this is a race that really bears watching. It has some elements in it that have literally never happened in Connecticut before. John Larson losing his convention, I believe, a Democratic incumbent, and certainly not a 14-term Democratic incumbent, has never lost his or her own convention. A congressional convention in Connecticut, including Lieberman in 2006, where he was in a lot of trouble and Lamont primaried him and beat him in the primary. But Lieberman won his convention. As an incumbent, you usually win your convention. So it's just a lot of unprecedented stuff happening. All right, let's go over to Wendy. And hi, Wendy, you're on the air.
Just really brief. I don't understand why I just don't see enough in the media, with Trump saying that, the 2020 election was rigged and fraud and all of this. And and then you read a little something, but there's no explanation of then how did you take the House and the Senate and the presidency in 2024?
Yeah, I've seen a bunch. I have seen a bunch of that
going on.
Yeah, my Hearst column was about that this last Sunday. I mean, it was about the whole thing, but I did go into that fact that somehow or other the most rigged election was the one where Trump had been in office for 4 years and presumably had control of a lot of how things were being done, and the less rigged one was the one that he won. I just doesn't really make. No, I'm doing it backwards. The one that he was in control of was the one that he won in 2024. And that whole argument doesn't make any sense. That they had that much control, but that's the one that they won. Anyway.
I just feel like it's not talked about enough.
Yeah.
From a that it's just not out there enough.
Yeah.
In terms of the media, I just don't see a lot of that. It's like, what is this?
Yeah, it's not clear to me what kinds of arguments. I mean, to me, the logical argument there is, in fact, as you suggest, very persuasive. That I still have said it wrong every single time I've said it, but it doesn't really make any sense that it would have worked the way that he's claiming it would have worked. That the one that he lost in 2020 was the one that happened while he was in charge of the whole process. And that the one that Biden was in control of presumably is the one where he and all the Republican majorities in Congress happened. There. Now I said it correctly.
Okay.
But but I mean, to me, the other thing is he gave that rather lengthy speech on Thursday, and he didn't cite a single new instance. He made some kind of wild allegations about China, but he didn't say, here's something that happened. And of course, the other thing that has been pointed out a lot is if you want to see what election interference looks like or sounds like, listen to the phone call he made to Georgia.
I know.
And where he said, you have to find me 11,780 votes or whatever it was. That's what election interference sounds like when an incumbent president calls an election official up in a state and says, find me some votes that I don't have so that I can win.
Right.
That's what that sounds like. That's election interference. Or, the other obvious case is also from that time, slates of false electors were being assembled. There's slates of electors who were prepared to go and cast electoral votes that contravened the outcome of those state elections. That's what election interference looks like. The most egregious cases of election interference.
Never mind January 6th.
Yeah, well, there's that. I don't know if that counts as election interference or just a bloodthirsty riot. But yeah, I mean, ultimately their goal was to disrupt the certification of the election results. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I share your frustration but I also think that this is not a great issue. When he says stuff like this, it's laying the groundwork for what he's going to do now, which is to send DOJ monitors and anybody else who can intimidate with or gum up the works of or lay some kind of pathetic groundwork for challenges to electoral results, because he knows on the numbers, the Republicans are going to lose their majority. In fair fights, they're just not going to do that well because of situations he's created. A war that won't stop. Economic conditions that do not favor and do not please most Americans. His approval ratings sinking, so is the Republican Party's. If the Democrats run a halfway decent race from August to November, they'll do very well. Now, that's an if, because a lot of the people who are, a lot of people who've lost faith in Trump are not people who have gained faith in the Democratic Party. They've just lost faith in Trump. We'll see.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry for babbling, Wendy, but you brought up a good topic. It was really I really was having kind of a senior moment there where I couldn't explain exactly the point that she was trying to make. It took me like 5 tries. All right. That is going to come up at the competency hearing. I know that. I know what'll happen. We should take a break, I think, even though Molly's got something. Molly, if you don't mind waiting, let's go to a break here. I think all the people would be happy who need to be happy about things.
That's how I went out and played. That's how I went out and prayed. That's how I went out and played. Let's go out and play. 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 I pay attention to the men behind the curtain. I was born in the horns of a bull. I know the patter who it serves and who it's hurting, and raised in the image of a wool puller. My daddy put my crib under Damocles' sword. My daddy put my crib under Damocles' sword. My daddy put my crib under Damocles' sword. I saw the bull and became a toreador. Ain't no qualification can make you immune.
That's Fiona Apple being typically Fiona Apple-ish. It's also the theme music to Lucky, a pretty good, so far, 2 episodes in a pretty interesting-looking series on Apple TV with Anya Joy-Taylor and who else is in it? The guy we like. My brain is just not working very well right now. But it has Annette Bening and it's terrific. And you should watch it. It's about a sociopath that you sympathize with because she's been surrounded by other sociopaths. All right, so we're going to go to the phones right now. It's the number's 888. So Timothy Oliphant, thank you. Oh, I'm in the most trouble. This morning I was walking with people on the dog walk and somehow or other a conversation broke out about young women and older men, and somebody mentioned J.D. Salinger. And I know Joyce Maynard, and I could not come up with the name Joyce Maynard. And I refused to look it up, too. But anyway, Timothy Oliphant was the name I was looking for, and that's what that music is connected to. And anyway, stop me before I digress again. 888-720-9677. 888-720-WNPR. Here's Molly in Barkhamsted. She has a very thick Barkhamsted accent, so listen carefully. You might not be able to understand everything that she says, but because of Lily Tyson, I'm pretty attuned to it. I'll be able to translate. Hi, Molly.
Hi, Colin. So, I don't know how familiar you are with Hampshire College.
I am quite familiar. I think I'm pretty familiar. Yeah, I mean, okay. So we should say Hampshire is up at the kind of the 5 college area of Massachusetts in that greater Northampton area. It was started, I believe, maybe around either late 60s or right around 70, maybe. And it was really regarded as being this incredibly progressive place where people designed their own curriculum, but could also attend other colleges up in that area. But it was really regarded, I think, at the time and going forward as a model of an attempt to get away from constricted and arthritic views of what a core curriculum would be. How did I do, Molly?
Excellent. The only thing, and probably the most important thing for the listeners, to know is that the most famous graduate of Hampshire is Ken Burns.
Yes, that's right.
The the famous documentarian and just incredible all-around person. So anyway, recently the other thing is that Hampshire, if your daughter was going to go to school there and they wanted the parents to pay, they would admit that it was an experiment in education. And that was how it was described. This is a unique experiment in education. And so, they folded. They failed. The experiment in education that was Hampshire College is no more. And which was horrible news. It really surprised me that somehow Ken Burns didn't bail them out. He was a graduate. He spoke at all the alumni gatherings and was very pro Hampshire College.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Hampshire's problems were significant, and I don't know how wealthy Ken Burns is or what kind of connections he has, or he's probably pretty busy raising money for his own enterprises from rich donors. But the problems were big, and they weren't simply financial. There were not enough applicants, as I understand it, for a very small class size. The applications had dropped off. It may have been, and I'm assuming you're an alumna. Am I correct about this?
My daughter.
Your daughter, okay. I mean, it may have been an idea that it really did run its course. The other problem, one of the problems was a lot of these colleges, during the COVID era, obviously everybody was closing. They got some federal relief money. When that money ran out, there wasn't anything to replace it. But a bigger problem is the decline in interest. And a lot of these smaller colleges, Hampshire is not the only college that has closed or is going to close. You also, I think, have a generation coming in. Well, they've already come. I mean, millennials are already here, and older members of Gen Z are starting to question the value of a four-year degree. Been a lot of writing about that lately as well. So I loved Hampshire. My managing editor, the late Cliff Teutsch from the Hartford Courant, went there. A member, one of my sisters-in-law went there. I'm probably not allowed to say her name on the air. But a lot of very cool people went to Hampshire, but it may just have stopped working. The whole idea may have just played itself out, which I know is depressing.
That's not the real reason for my call. When they failed after being described as a experiment in education, for the very first time, I thought, and our democracy can fail. Mm-hmm. We have been an experiment in, governing people.
Yep.
And now that, as sad as I was about Hampshire, I thought,
well, it's like Ben Franklin said, he was asked coming out of the Constitutional Convention what they had come up with, and he said, a republic, if you can keep it. And I think if you can keep it has gained a certain penetrating quality over the last, say, 10 years. I agree with you. I don't think there's any real guarantee that our government stays intact. I'd bet 75-80%, that we'll make it, we'll recover, we'll rebuild. But there's also, as I was saying to the previous caller, there's permanent damage that may not be reversible. So I don't blame you for being worried.
Yep.
But that means, you love something, you got to fight for it. You love something, you want it. It's sort of why I spend a lot of money at farmers markets, because it's like, okay, you like the idea of farms, you like seeing all those open fields with corn growing and stuff. So you're going to have to pay a little bit extra for your vegetables, because that's how it works. You got to buy stuff from them. All right, let's go to Sonia, and then we'll go to Fred. Okay, we'll start with Sonia in Middlefield. Hi, Sonia. How are you today?
I'm well, Colin. How are you?
I'm as well as can be expected for a man of my age and temperament.
I wanted to talk about World Cup, sort of under two headings. One has to do with the use of language, mm-hmm. And the other having to do with parallel processes. And then just put the quarter in the Wurlitzer and see where you take it from there. But proxy, there's an awful lot out there, sort of in the sphere, as they call it, about, oh, well, Spain was a proxy for Palestine and Gaza, and Argentina, was playing as a proxy for Israel, and so on and so forth. And, I wanted to talk about the use of the word proxy, which, and I feel like I might be in your roundhouse on this, or inviting you to open the roundhouse on this, that, proxy has to do with nearness and closeness or distance. And the word proxy has now become a dirty word, in everything we touch. So-and-so is a proxy for so-and-so, or such another philosophy is a proxy for. And I guess the question is, we've vilified the conception of proxyism. And I'd be interested in your thoughts on that. And then the second has to do with parallel process. There was a lot of skullduggery, as probably there always has been. I'm not naive to, the difference between things that are now revealed as going on and have always been there versus somehow suddenly a change in, the realities. Maybe there was skullduggery going on in the 1930 World Cup. I don't know. But anyway, the sort of parallel process of Trump, for example, appealing the red card decision, admitting openly that he didn't know what a red card was. I think he had to Google it or Wikipedia it or something. And the notion that so brazenly and so ill-advisedly to call up, FIFA, looking for a review of the red card decision. For me, I find parallel in that to his law scoffing of the rule of law. And again, I'm surprised by my own naivete, as if somehow this game could have been this match could have been separated from the usual skullduggery of politics and the usual misuse and abuse of language and misappropriation and so on and so forth. So I don't know. I'm just curious as to whether you would have thoughts about either use of language or parallel process.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do here. First of all, I think we need to acknowledge Trump. And McPants is pointing this out right now. Trump doesn't look up anything on Wikipedia or Google anything. He has a proxy do that for him. You see what I did there. But he doesn't know how to do anything like that. So, we'll back up and say FIFA is widely regarded and historically regarded as maybe the most horrifically corrupt sports organization in the world. So, I mean, it's something of an accomplishment on Donald Trump's part to make it seem more corrupt when the latent understanding among, the global football community is these are horrible people whom you cannot trust. And people who engage in abominations, we've already forgotten that 4 years ago, like thousands of people died. I think the ultimate body count was thousands of people died in creating that.
In creating that stadium,
in Qatar, or creating that playing space, that enormous amount of playing space in Qatar. So, I mean, they've done worse things than revert somebody's red card. But I think also Trump comes from a world where, you make a call. And he already knows Infantino likes him. Infantino gave him the bogus Peace Prize. And it was capped off in terms of pageantry and allegory when Spain won, and Trump, of course, because he has to be everywhere. I mean, if he could have been anything that everybody's interested in, he's got to be there. He's got to make himself a center of it. If he could have inserted himself, you should pardon the expression, into Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's wedding night, he would have done it. He just has to be everywhere. And so he's up there on stage, handing out medals, and some of the players are trying to avoid shaking his hand. And then it comes time for the big celebration and the hoisting upwards of the World Cup and the confetti and the blah, 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 and he won't leave. And so you can actually see a couple of the Spanish players kind of gently using their arms to guide him to the side. And finally, Infantino kind of runs over. It's just says, we can't be here. We are not members of this team that just won something. We cannot stand next to them. I don't think he said all that, but so there's a lot of parallels to the way things
I will cut across you there to say, one must give credit to the teams that did comport themselves with so much dignity.
Oh yeah.
And had so much comportment. I mean, people who lost with dignity, not Argentina, people who lost with dignity, people who utilized well-known, well-trod paths of appeal in order to register, like Egypt, to register their concern about the refereeing, which is an appeal process as opposed to dropping a phone call and pressurizing. And I thought, the Spanish, especially that young man, Yamin, such an exercise in poise and dignity and comportment, just really.
I believe he's the guy whose parents had to walk like hundreds of miles in order to emigrate too. I mean, he's if I'm thinking of this, So, I mean, I do want to say this. Another thing that, and not to valorize the World Cup, but okay, so that final game, it got pretty chippy, particularly near the end, and there was a lot of pushing and shoving and yelling, and even after the game, there was still some barking that was going on. But, ultimately, you watch those guys, they eventually turn the temperature down, and pretty much everybody was hugging everybody else by the end. And I mean, you can sort of understand after a hard-fought game with all that extra time and stuff and a lot on the line, how there might be some pushing and shoving. And, people play sports and they get mad at each other. But one thing that athletes are usually pretty good at doing is calming down at the end. The thing's over, and and Argentina can't do anything about the fact that it lost, and Spain is no longer in danger of not winning. Athletes are pretty good about sort of getting to the hugging point within a matter of 5-10 minutes or so. And we
need to send them to the UN.
That's what I was going to say. We could learn a lot from that. That you don't, just because your interests diverge for a while or in opposition for one another, you don't have to hate each other. Anyway, Sonia, thank you for a really interesting question, and we're going to talk more about proxies and the idea of proxies as time goes by, and maybe in our meeting right after the show today. But right now, we have to take a break. Fred is on the line from Stanford. We will get to him on the way back. Time to say a few thank yous. Here, we'll start with Dylan Reyes, our technical producer, the maestro. Jonathan McPants is producing from a remote location due to automotive distress and other things, mainly automotive distress. And Robyn Doyon-Aitken, our boss, is the person screening the calls. And we just have and once again, congratulations to our intern Amanda Adams for the show that ran yesterday about undoing. Thought it was a really interesting concept and well executed by her. So a star is born. What can we say? All right. So thanks to everybody who's helped out so far today. Once again, the number to call, 888-720-9677. You can call up about any topic you want. 888-720-9677 or 888-720-WNPR. And here's Fred in Stanford. Hi, Fred. You're on the air.
Hi, Colin. How are you today?
Good. Good to hear from you.
Anyway, I was just wondering, what is your feeling on the relationship between the United States and China? Is it like doomed to fall to this Thucydides Trap? Like one or the other, two powers, all of that stuff?
Yeah, so for the benefit of listeners, the Thucydides Trap refers to a situation where an established global power feels threatened by a rising, formerly lesser power. In a way, I would argue that the conditions of the Thucydides Trap were met a long time ago and maybe have kind of begun to settle in. But I know that China's leader himself invokes that very term, Thucydides Trap, on occasion to describe the anxiety that he thinks that the U.S. feels about the rise of China. I would just say this, that it's clear that the current administration hasn't thought this through very carefully. Their tariff policies made it attractive for other countries to do business with China. China now is, that kind of minimum second option, so that even when you look right now at all the blustering and saber rattling that Trump's doing with Canada, I'm sure Carney is thinking, well, anything that doesn't work out for me with the United States, I bet I can make a deal with China. Have already done that in the past. I think one of the reasons that we get nervous about the Thucydides Trap is when it's been studied by scholars, it seems to lead to war an awful lot of the time, including the first time it was Athens and Sparta. But so that's the reason that it's more than just a scholarly curiosity. I don't know. I feel like, first of all, I'm not qualified to really have an opinion about this. I would say that if in the absence of some kind of canny, thoughtful leadership of this country, which I do not think we currently have, the danger of some of those conditions being met and exacerbated is higher than it needs to be. And other previous administrations have tried to manage this a little bit more adroitly. I also wonder about the whole Thucydides Trap model, just because, it made sense in prior centuries, but here you're talking about superpowers of a size where their influence permeates pretty much every part of the globe, and where the stakes are incredibly high, and the weapons that could be deployed, could alter or extinguish life. I don't know. We're certainly, this is not your grandfather's Thucydides, or your great grandfather's Thucydides Trap. This is a new kind of Thucydides Trap that you have to be very careful around. It's like trying to add a cashew to a mousetrap you've already set. So I don't know. Fred, did you have thoughts that you wanted to share?
I don't know. I just hope it doesn't get to the point of war, and somehow it can be reversed and maybe turn the doomsday clock back a little bit. I don't know. It's not good. I don't like it.
I mean,
we're supposed to be friends. We were allies from World War II, blah, 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 all of that stuff.
Yeah, and I would say this. I think, once again, I'm just not an expert on all this stuff. I'm just talking kind of as a regular person here. But it seems as though if China wanted to take it there, they would have made a move on Taiwan by now. And, of course, part of Trump's initial theory of himself that he proposed was that because he seemed to be on a hair trigger and to be kind of irrational, other nations would be reluctant to do provocative things. That maybe China, they might have been willing to take a run at Taiwan under a Biden or a Kamala Harris, or who would pick somebody, but maybe not with Trump because they didn't know what he's going to do. That that's not an entirely implausible theory. It's one of the few things that Trump has ever said that might be true. In which case, we're really asking, well, what comes after? And presumably in 2028, if we have free elections, we will elect somebody who will approach this as a grown-up as opposed to a crazy person. But if we live that long. But it seems to me Taiwan is the place where we would have found out right away, if China wanted to sort of to ratchet it up. I don't think they do. I'm not even sure what the upside.
I'm with you on that.
What's that?
I'm with you on that. Taiwan does not. Yeah.
What's the upside? What's the upside to exacerbating tensions?
Exactly.
They're already, I think, because of our own overall incompetence and the fact that they have a strategic plan for their whole country and their future, and we don't. They're already doing pretty well. People tend not to come out of, and I don't see how anybody could come out of a war like that between two superpowers in better shape. So, let's. I've been told by the booth that the world wants me to say something hopeful, Fred. So I should begin with that and begin doing that before we run out of time. I do feel like don't give up hope. I know it's scary. It's been a very scary 10 years, really, and And you should be worried, but you shouldn't be worried in a way that paralyzes you. First of all, a lot of life just goes on. And one thing that Bill and I talked about yesterday on the show was the idea that, the way that our government has worked in the past is not the only way that government can work in this country, and that ultimately we probably needed to rethink some of that anyway. And, I look at what's happening now, where Trump is withholding Medicaid funds from 2 states, which I find very scary. People who are on Medicaid, they really need that. They don't have another way to pay for their health care. But it's also an example of why maybe it was always a mistake to have the federal government have so much control over stuff like that. That maybe ultimately the truth of America always was a plan to create some resiliency at the state level. To have the states, one of the reasons the states control their own voting processes is, I think, a desire of the framers to have some resiliency. One of the things that I hope will be part of the gubernatorial elections and other state elections that transpire in 2026 are conversations about that. We've seen a little bit of it here in Connecticut. I'd like to see more. I'd like to see Ned Lamont and Ryan Fazio, or Josh Elliott and Ryan Fazio, talk about, how Connecticut, but any state, how it becomes a little bit more self-sufficient, a little bit less beholden to the caprices of people in Washington. I mean, one thing that we've seen in the last 10 years has been the lesson that maybe we needed, which is that you can't always assume that you're going to get somebody in leadership who understands the Overton window, who operates within guardrails. You're going to instead see people get power who abuse it and are cynical about it. And with that in mind, we're going to end the show today with a very old song written by Woody Guthrie. It seems to acquire a kind of currency from time to time. This is a pretty interesting version of it. I think it's Margot Price and Joan Baez and the Memphis Mariachi. Anyway, it's a song you probably know, but it's certainly on our minds these days.
Rosalita, adios, mis amigos, Jesus y Maria. You won't have a name when you ride.